Ali, okay? You say in your book,
okay, let's
and I'm quoting you,
Come
okay?
on.
The black man in America is the only male on earth, including every continent, who is disrespected by the women in his nation.
That's true.
This situation does not exist anyplace else among the billions of people inhabiting our planet except here in America.
That's right.
The other black men, the yellow men, the red men, the brown men, and the white men are all honored and respected by their respective nations. All other women recognize and accept that the man is the authority, the ruler, and the leader. Only here in the United States, in the black nation, scattered throughout the United States, is the black man neglected. That's pretty powerful.
And it's absolutely true. We
a living Christ
have been displaced. A lot of us don't really understand what slavery actually did to us and how much psychological trauma it did to us regarding what our proper roles are.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. I appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Donate to the Super Chat. Donate to the PayPal. Donate to the Cash App. It's your contributions and your donations that'll cause for this platform to grow. Let our voice be the voice, the preeminent voice in Black America. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. I appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Donate to the Super Chat. Donate to the PayPal. Donate to the Cash App. It's your contributions and your donations that'll cause for this platform to grow. Let our voice be the voice, the preeminent voice in Black America.
Welcome back to the broadcast. I hope everybody can hear me. I hope you all had a
A great day, a great night, a great morning, whatever it may be, wherever you are around the world. I want to acknowledge all of my fans and subscribers around the world. As you guys see, this is a very serious subject that we're talking about. So there probably won't be as many festivities as there normally is. And I'm going to try to do this broadcast for posterity, which is why you see me with the tie on, because I don't want people looking up at this at 20 years saying, who is this guy? So for the purpose of this conversation, I am going to just go ahead and I want to take a moment to acknowledge all the people in the chat room here. Thank you so much. I do not expect this to be a broadcast that is widely viewed, largely because it's not a subject that many people tend to want to talk about. Whatever color, wherever you are, it's just something people want to bury. The other thing you'll notice is that I am changing my screen name to Dennis Sperling Esquire, which means I'm really taking this extremely serious. So here's the thing, what I want you guys to do. I want you to hit the number 1 button. Let's try to keep up with some of the procedure. Let me know you can hear me. I hope you can. I appreciate you guys for checking in. And what we're going to do tonight, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, is that we're going to talk about the legal arguments related to reparations. Now, I've heard this discussed throughout Black America by politician after politician for decades, ever since I was a small child. But I've never heard anyone actually give us a blueprint, a game plan to how this can be executed, largely because I just don't think that they went that far, and I just don't think they thought like we do. And when I say we, I'm talking about this generation right here and now, okay? And what makes this generation differently is that I feel we're practical and we're realists, and we've been lied to so much by the government, by our ancestors, that we want to see things for ourselves. Now, what I'm going to propose is that instead of looking at the conventional guilty parties, we take a firm look, and I'm relating to reparations, we take a firm look at those African countries who participated by treaty with the European enslavers. Now, this affects not only Black American people in the United States. This also affects Africans who ended up in Jamaica, in the Bahamas, Dominican Republic, Haiti, South America, places like Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, Paraguay, Uruguay, many places in Central America, Belize, Guyana, all the places that Africans landed in the New World. And so in this regard, we're going to have a conversation about those who are responsible for that. Now, here's something that I understand about Black people. Although I'm a very qualified attorney, I'm licensed to practice law in multiple states. I have 2 decades worth of experience, going on 3 at 22 years. I scored a perfect 9 out of 9 score on the Louisiana bar examination, which, by the way, is based on the civil law doctrine, which is very timely for this particular conversation. In addition to that, I'm licensed to practice law in the Supreme Court of the United States of America. In addition to that, the Fifth Circuit of the United States Court of Appeals. and many other United States district courts. My primary practice is what we would call the Article 3 courts, i.e. the constitutional courts, the federal courts for laymen. And so even still, with my 2 law degrees, I know, because of the mind warp that many of my people have had to endure all throughout the African diaspora, you much rather hear what I'm saying coming from a white man or a white woman. And that's unfortunate to say, but I understand that is one of the sicknesses that have come about as a result of your enslavement and your incarceration here in the United States, and you're being stripped of your culture and your love for yourself and all these other things. Now, this is not the first time I've had this conversation. I actually began this conversation the summer before last, and those of you all who are members of my my membership group here on YouTube, you can see those videos, and I go into great detail about all the African kings and royalty and those who participated actively in the slave trade with knowledge, knowing the effect of what would happen to the people that were enslaved, even at the point where Africans were marched to the shore of the Gold Coast, the Windward Coast, and these different African shores. They knew then that this was a different kind of slavery that they were selling their own people into. Now, some of you will try to get into this argument that they didn't know that this was their tribe, or they saw them as this, that, and the other. And I have information, testimony, videos from experts that will teach you otherwise. So what we're not going to do today is that we're not going to rely on secondhand information. I'm simply going to lay out the legal arguments and the merits of reparations for Black Americans, Caribbean Americans, or my Caribbean brothers, those people in Jamaica, wherever you are right now. I'm going to lay it out. South America, Central America. And at this point, it'll be on you as to whether or not you begin to exercise, but you exercise your rights. But you can never say you weren't given the roadmap. And what I predict will happen, just like what I see has happened. 2 years ago, when I presented this idea on YouTube, it miraculously ended up on national television, on national networks. And now you have white scholars and white legal European scholars and European lawyers and American lawyers who are not Black saying, yeah, that's a good idea. That actually makes sense. This is not the first time this happened to me. And of course, I'm not saying I'm not taking credit at all, but I'm saying it's a mighty interesting coincidence, because I don't recall anyone ever laying out the legal arguments for why Africans should go and seek reparations from these rogue African countries who continued selling slaves after it became illegal in 1808 and 1807 in the United States and Great Britain, respectfully. Now, without further ado, I would like to acknowledge a gentleman. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. The gentleman's name is Derek Hollingsworth. He has been so far the first and only individual that has sought my consultation, even to discuss the likelihood or unlikelihood, or what he should do in order for his family to begin to seek reparations. We recently did a consultation. I won't give you the details of it because that's privileged. But what I will say is that largely our conversation is what inspired this, because what I want to do is put as much information out there as I can so that those who come behind me will maybe pick up this torch and move forward with it. So I would like to acknowledge Mr. Hollingsworth at this point. And at that, let's commence. So thank you all again. Please hit the number 1 button for the ancestors. I know there's a lot of folks who are non-Black here, but oh well, welcome to the show. We're going to talk. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm sure this is going to be something that folks want to continue having a conversation about in the future. But nevertheless, I'd like to introduce you to someone you probably already know. He's a gentleman who's on HBO, and recently this came on Bill Maher's show. This was a conversation that came up out of the blue. Listen, and we'll be right back.
Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans, all the way up through R. Kelly.
Whether or not you like the humor, his statement is accurate. Okay, slavery has been a part of the human condition since the beginning of time. Okay, so just let's continue listening. This is accurate. Well, looks like we lost it. I'll get it back up shortly. Give me 1 second. All right, let's see here.
Invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans, all the way up through R. Kelly.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually try to switch this out because I don't want to have this copyright stricken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually play another video. Hopefully this will come out a little bit better. Give me a minute. But basically, he goes on to say slavery is not anything new. It's not uniquely American. It never was. It's something that's been involved in the human condition since the beginning of time. Now, the next video I want to show, and you guys can find this video on YouTube. And again, as I said, unfortunately, my people don't believe their own scholars. You can have a black lawyer or a black doctor say something, but until they hear it from a white man, they are just not going to believe you. So I have to do what I have to do to make sure that that African Americans are on board with this. Now, I don't know what it's like in other countries, and it's a shame to be able to say that, and it's a filthy shame for me have to be able to say that. But because I know my people so well, I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure we get the point across. Okay. Now, in the meantime, let me. I just switched this video out, so it should be coming up shortly.
Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans, all the way up through R. Kelly.
All right. Okay, never mind. We're still here. Now, we got to that part. Now, here's another video I'd like to share with you. All right, we're going to need the ancestors to help us out here with this technology.
$100 billion, $24 billion here and there, 500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you are, you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa, and across the entire world, when slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say, who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages? Absolutely, that's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll continue to discuss.
Just like many of you, Don Lemon was speechless when he heard that, because African Americans are not taught this information. We are taught that slavery started on the Middle Passage and that our poor African brothers and sisters fought and fought and fought to try to keep us from being sold, when in actuality, the truth was they participated heavily and they benefited heavily from it, wealth-wise. This was a process that went on for 400 years, or 500 years, I apologize, and the African royalty participated in it 100%, and period. Now, of course, there are going to be outliers, but it was a money-making scheme. And so because of that, you have to understand that anybody who wanted to make money was going to be involved in this endeavor. So I'm not trying to romanticize anything. See, a lot of people who consider themselves pro-blacks or pan-Africanists, they will not tell you the truth. The reason they won't tell you the truth is because they want you to have this romanticized view of Africa as though our ancestors were not the same human beings that we are. I want you to look at your own behavior. During the 1980s, I experienced what we call the drug epidemic, the crack epidemic. The truth is, black men and black women were not flying and floating the dope into the black neighborhoods, but it was being distributed by black men and black women who profited from it. And just like then, just like now, the same excuse was, if I don't do it, somebody else will do it. Don't hold your ancestors in any higher regard than you would hold yourself. I get it. It hurts to hear that. It makes you feel bad. But that's not why I'm here. Just because you feel bad doesn't mean we don't push forward and get the justice that our ancestors who ended up in Brazil, in the Caribbean, in Central America, in the United States. That doesn't mean we don't go forward and get the justice that they deserve. Now, I'm going to give you a follow-up conversation that took place between that scholar from Europe and another man who was on another news broadcast. Mind you, all of these conversations took place within a week of this very broadcast. So that lets you know this is what is stirring in academia. This is what is stirring in these circles. This is going to be the response you hear when you ask for reparations. Well, why don't you go after those African royalty? Matter of fact, 2,000, or was it 20,000 British sailors died trying to stop slavery. So those families, what they mean is those British families, those heirs to those British families, those men who died, they're entitled to reparations too. Now, there's precedent for that in the United States. When a law enforcement dies, a law enforcement officer dies in the act of preventing some criminal for doing something, his family can sue for wrongful death against the criminal. The only issue is statute of limitations and merits. And that's something that can be legislated. So I want you to hear the rest of this.
She is a royal commentator and global business analyst. And I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. I think one of the most important things that a lot of people learn from this clip, which has just gone incredibly viral, is that slavery.
This gentleman is referring to the clip that she had on CNN with Don Lemon. Okay? It has gone viral. Now you have millions and millions of people who have never thought about this idea. Why don't you sue those African countries? Now it's on their mind. So again, I talked about this 2 years ago. And now you hear it out there. And again, I'm not taking credit for anything in particular. What I'm saying is it's out there, it's in the ether, it's in the atmosphere. Somebody is going to take action. Somebody, it might not be you here in the United States, but there are some Africans people of African descent in Canada that might. There are some folks down in Jamaica who run their country who might say, yeah, let's put the weight of our solicitors behind this and push forward. We have treaties in place with these African countries. There are people in Brazil that might do this. And once again, my African American brothers and sisters who refer to themselves as ADOS or FBA, you will be left behind because you didn't act, because unfortunately, you are the only group of Africans on this planet who have been lied to about what African royalty participated in at the time of slavery. And I have another video that I will show you that chronicles that. Every other African group of people that go see the door of no return, they get it. It's only the African Americans that begin to throw tantrums and shout and bang walls because this is the first time they've heard that. Let's continue with this video.
And reparations, the narrative behind this is not simple at all.
Fair use.
You're absolutely right, Rob. It is an immensely complex, and might I add, sensitive issue, and it actually should be. We are all actually Homo sapiens.
Right.
This is an issue that should concern us all of mankind. It's something that we should all be thinking about. It's something that we should all be looking into, and maybe we could read about. Someone that reached out to me, a fine young man, and actually we're sort of dear friends, is Rashid Walters. I would like everyone to look up Rashid Walters. He is a fine young man. He is a historian. And one of the many books he recommended for me to read, because he said he was so glad someone had given a voice to this, is about the richest man of all of history. Do you know who he is, Rob? I bet our audience doesn't know.
I don't.
He makes Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos.
She's going to talk about Mansa Musa. You guys remember 2 years ago when I first got here, I gave you a whole layout of African kings and royalty on the west coast of Africa. And I explained to you that it was after Mansa Musa made his pilgrimage to Mecca with all his gold and all his slaves that the Europeans then came and invaded Africa and stole all the wealth. Remember that. So our history has been there for us to examine and for us to put this together. But now, and you saw me do it 2 years ago, but now that you have this white scholar doing it, I'm sure you will listen because, of course, that's how we were trained. Now she just told you that the man that she's going to mention was richer than makes Bill Gates look like a woman with an EBT card. That's what she's saying. Now, for you guys who don't know, Mansa Musa was referred to as the Lord of Mines, gold mines, silver mines, diamond mines. This was Mansa Musa. She's going to explain it, but let's continue.
Pale due to his wealth. I bet you haven't heard of him, as you say. Most people have never heard of him. Do you know, I had never heard of him. Manu Musa. Do you know who he is? He is an African who sold gold, ivory, salt, and was so involved in the slave trade.
Yeah.
And it almost makes me cry to say this. He took over 12,000 slaves of his own.
Now, she's referring to the internal African slave trade. This is what I'm saying, fellas and ladies. Slavery existed in Africa before the first European ever showed up. It existed in Africa before the Arabs showed up. Yes, it was a different kind of slavery for the most part. Africans, if you wanted to, and this is not consistent everywhere, but for the most part, the slaves were treated like members of the family. Before a slave could be brought into the house, he had to be brought in, or she had to be brought in as part of the family. What does that mean? If she was a female slave, she would be married into the family. If he was a male slave, he would be adopted into the family. There were rules as to how you treated your slaves. Okay, so even you had a slave from a different tribe, you recognize his humanity. So when you have our African contemporaries saying, oh no, they saw them as different people, you're lying to me, brothers. You're lying to me, because in your own system of slavery, you would take a Yoruba man and you could be Igbo, and you would still have to treat him as a decent human being. You still would have to bring him into your family. So I know that, you know, selling those slaves to those white people wasn't just about, oh, we're selling some people that aren't like us. You know what you were doing. And so let's stop the lies. And that's for my African brothers and sisters who are watching this right now. That's not going to work with us. We are not our ancestors. What does that mean? We are thoroughly Americanized. We recognize our African roots, but at this point, we are so separate from you, and you've proven to us you don't want us back, that we have to see you as what you are. So, and again, when I say you don't want us back, what do I mean? Africans, Caribbeans, Haitians, South American blacks, we've been here for 500 years, and you haven't sent any boats or ships to come get us and bring us home. So we recognize that is no longer our home, because you don't want us there. And that's okay, because at this point it's time to move forward, and that's what we're doing. Let's continue listening.
To the colonies and what he did and what he did with gold. I haven't read it yet, but I recommend to all of your readers, all of your watchers, we start reading and we start learning. I am just interested, and I've always been interested, in the whole truth. It's a very complex and a very sensitive issue.
It is. I mean, it's, you know, it was just the other day, I think it was last Friday, Bill Maher's show. It had a very similar clip that he talked about how for the longest time slavery was the rule of the world and not the exception, how everybody, every culture, every land had slaves. I think we actually have it, guys. If we do, let's go ahead and let it play.
All right. Now I'm going to skip that and move forward. We have the clip here.
I don't know how you see this, but I think that this is, it's a topic that I think is used because it's politically divisive, because I think it's useful for some people to bring it up and to create, you know, and what they're doing is they're creating, you know, a war in society where you've got people that, you know, we're rehashing things that happened hundreds of years ago, I think, for political usefulness for some people who want to bring this up, who want to push some agenda, whatever it might be. And it's gutting the West. I'm sure it's happening in England. It's certainly happening here in the United States, creating all of this hate for no reason whatsoever. And it's so dangerous. And it's so nice to see people realizing it, no matter what your political faction is. We're starting to see that on all. I mean, Bill Maher is a huge liberal. He's obviously had a bit of, he's changed in recent years a little bit, but, you know, he's not a Trumper. He's not a right winger. I can tell you that.
No, you're absolutely right. And Rob, a few things on that you're right about, and actually what Bill Maher said. Think about this. Probably, actually, you're a descendant of slaves. Most of our viewers are probably descendant of slaves. Most probably white people are. You know how we know that? Because of what Bill Maher said about the Romans. The Romans built roads all across Europe, colosseums in many European places, towns, cities. Who do you think built those? They would invade and they took local slaves. That's where most people come from, is Western Europe, if they don't come from the African continent. So we basically really all are. But I think perhaps it would be healthier and better in some ways to focus on what we can do today. 300 years from now, Rob, we will be judged on what we did about slavery.
And what I plan on doing about slavery is laying out an argument why my people here in the United States should be rewarded, should be able to sue for reparations. We're not asking. At this point, it's about taking what we know is ours for the justice or the injustices we suffered. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to have some more videos. We'll be queued up. We'll be right back.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. I appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Donate to the Super Chat. Donate to the PayPal. Donate to the Cash App. It's your contributions and your donations that'll cause for this platform to grow. Let our voice be the preeminent voice in Black America.
Ago allowed no white men to trade until everyone had been paid off. From the king of Dahomey.
I want to welcome you all back to the conversation. Please hit the number 1 button. Dear moderators, please put my Cash App in the chat room. I'd also appreciate you guys. If you appreciate what we're doing here, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Please do that, please. This is going to be a very controversial video. I can tell you that now. There are a lot of people whose feelings are going to be hurt, and that's okay. Matter of fact, I've had people who have approached me and asked me not to do this, which is why I delayed it from doing it this summer to doing it now. But based on what I see, it's necessary, okay? I think it's necessary. If you think this is necessary, if you think this is an important conversation, please tag your friends on this video. I want you to do that. I want as many people to watch this live as they can, okay? That's what I'd like, all right? I want as many people to watch this live as they possibly can. Let's go ahead and proceed. What you're looking at now is a young woman in Benin. For those of you guys who don't know where Benin is, it's right there in the armpit of Africa between, on the Gold Coast or the Windward Coast, between Ghana and Nigeria. They got Togo and Benin, okay? And so basically 10% of the Africans that ended up in the New World, which is about a little over 1 million, started right here. And so this is a video where this young woman, who is a descendant of one of the slave traders, is going to tell you about her ancestor and how sinister he was. This is going to explain to you that those people 400 or 500 years ago were just like you, and they were subject to their greed. They were subject to all the shortcomings that you're subject to. So again, don't romanticize our brothers and sisters from the past, our ancestors. Now, those of you guys who may not want to listen to white folks, I have a black scholar for you to listen to. So let's go ahead and listen. Now, the first person she mentioned, she's going to say this: before the white man can even come onto the land, he has to pay the king's middleman. And then the king has to be paid, even right down to the washerwoman who washes the Europeans' clothes have to be paid. And so what that lets you know is not only was this an institution, again, this lasted 500 years, or 400 and some odd years, 500 years. This was a lifestyle that they created. Kingdoms rose and fell because of this. This is how they conducted business. So stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not talking to my African family over there, and you can be offended by this, but that's okay. This is the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now, of course, it's going to be painful, and you're not going to like what you heard, but your scholars already know this. They already know your participation in the African slave trade, your ancestors right there. Let's continue to listen.
The Black Yovagal allowed no white men to trade until everyone.
The Black Yogodal was the go-between between the African king and the white slave traders. Keep that in mind.
Had been paid off, from the king of Dahomey down to the washerwoman who did the Europeans' laundry. The small town of Ouida was responsible for nearly a tenth of all slave exports across the Atlantic. About 1 million people were force-marched down this road to the waiting ships.
This road, this very road right here, did you hear what they said? Over that 500-year period, 1 million of our ancestors were marched down this very road from the interior of Africa to the coast. This is where your ancestors' footprints, their essence, their souls, their spirits marched down this very road. And it's well known and well documented. The historical sites are still there. The evidence is still there. Now, I'm spending all of this time explaining to you what our African ancestors did and their participation, because you have so many people on the internet telling you, oh no, they didn't know what they were doing. And they're lying to you. They're lying to you, and you're such a naive, loving group of people, and you don't want to believe that your own African ancestors would do this to you because you've been taught to romanticize them. You don't want to believe it. So now I want you to hear it from the Africans' mouths themselves.
A tenth of all slave exports across the Atlantic. About 1 million people were force-marched down this road to the waiting ships. Ouida's slave merchants grew rich. Men like Brazilian Francisco Felix de Souza. He took his first 2 sons into the slave trade with him.
Fair use.
The family shrine contains his grave and his double bed.
Il avait plus d'une quarantaine de femmes, mais toutes des femmes
He had more than 40 wives, all
Il
black.
fut père de près de 90 garçons. Les enfants filles n'étaient pas
They
comptés.
didn't count the girls.
C'est un homme qui n'a pas de cœur, non mauvais. Parce que toi tu es là, tu vois les esclaves en train de partir. Il a même des jumelles. Il suivait ses esclaves depuis sa maison jusqu'à la plage. Ces gens enchaînés, souffrant, pourvu que lui il ait de l'argent, ça ne lui disait rien. Donc, nous ne pouvons pas dire dans ce sens-là qu'il a été bon. Il a été inhumé.
Martine de Souza is not only his direct descendant, she is also a guide at the museum, located in the old Portuguese fort.
Again, they will flag this. This is not going to stay up long, so I strongly suggest you all download this as soon as you can.
Martine explains to visitors how the slave trade in Ouida worked and what part her ancestors.
Now, this gentleman is obviously a black man, and he has his family. He has a white woman. I'm assuming he's either African or European, a black man who lives in Europe, a European country. So he probably already knows the history, per se. But I want you to read carefully what is being said here.
Ancestors played in it.
Alors je me sens toujours
I always feel guilty.
coupable. Je n'ai pas initié la traite, je ne
I wasn't in the trade, but I am descended from that man.
l'ai pas fait, mais je suis descendante de cet homme-là. Martine, est-ce que tu ne te sens pas
Martin, they say, aren't you embarrassed? Fair use.
gênée? Est-ce que ce n'est pas bizarre aujourd'hui? Ton ancêtre aurait
Your ancestors might have sold mine, but today you are my guide.
pu vendre mon ancêtre, mais aujourd'hui, tu es mon guide. Alors, qu'est-ce que tu penses de cela? C'est un peu
It is rather embarrassing for me.
gênant pour moi. Surtout, la cible de l'esclavage, c'était le Nigeria. Tu vois, c'était des femmes qui viennent de...
Not all visits are as peaceful as
I want you to listen to this part, especially my Black American folks. I want you to listen to this very carefully.
this one.
Mais face aux Africains américains, ceux-là même dont les ancêtres ont souffert, et ceux-là qui...
With African Americans, that's you, whose ancestors suffered,
vivent encore le problème de discrimination aujourd'hui, la réaction est...
and who live with the discrimination today, the reaction is completely different.
Totalement différente. Ils sont tout de suite enragés.
They become furious. They weep and wail. They even thump the walls. In other words, they go bang on the walls because you've been lied to. You have whole religions dedicated to lying to you and telling you that you are the people of this continent here in the United States. You have whole people, you have people having you fantasizing about going back to the motherland on the trip, the return home trip, where you pay to go through the walls and the doors that your ancestors were forced through. The most you get from these countries is an apology. No reparations. They're not paying you anything. They're not sending any ships. They're not extending to you any dual citizenship. And if you are, it's so mired down with paperwork, and they don't want all of you. They just want the lawyers and the doctors like myself, the people who are wealthy. So that's not really reparations. That does not really replace what you lost. Let's continue.
Et c'est des pleurs. Ils
They become
coulent des larmes.
They
Ils
weep,
pleurent.
they
Ils
wail,
donnent même
they
des
even hit the
coups
wall.
de poing au mur. Alors pour
There
nous,
you-
pour dire, mais je ne savais pas que les...
I didn't know blacks contributed so much to the slave trade, they say. A lot of you black Americans, you stop learning, you hear about the Middle Passage and what happened in Alabama and Mississippi and Arkansas. Then you go to the Civil War, and then after that, you skip straight to Martin Luther King. That's it. If you want to actually know what happened before we got here, you got to actually read, and most of us won't do that.
Noirs avaient aussi contribué à cette traite des Noirs. Et je leur dis souvent, oui, il ne faut pas toujours...
I reply, you shouldn't always blame whites because the blacks contributed. Now, we're not letting those European slavers off the hook. But what we're not going to do is, in trying to figure out who's at fault, leave anyone out. That's what we're not going to do, because there are three main parties. There's the one that caught you, the ones that shipped you, that bought you and shipped you over here, and the ones that sold you when you got here. You folks who have been looking for reparations, you've been starting at the ones who shipped you over here. You didn't start at the source of the problem. There would not be the slave issue that we have now had it not been for that African royalty caging us and lining us up in the castles on the beach. No white man was going into the interior of Africa, capturing Africans in these remote tribes. That was not happening. It was oftentimes tribal chiefs and kings making up wars as the auspices to go out and capture slaves. What do I mean by that? Well, most of you Negroes are giving your African ancestors the benefit of the doubt. You're saying, oh no, they've been warring for years. They were just capturing slaves. No, it was an arms race. The more slaves they captured, the more they could sell, the more guns they could get, the more other things they can trade for. It was a self-fulfilling cycle. We capture more slaves, we get more guns, we capture more slaves, and we sell them for more guns. And that went on for 400 or 500 years until some parts of Africa was just emptied out. And they did it for profit. They did it for money. They did it for power. That's it. And so you do not owe them the benefit of the doubt. Now, I want you all to kick back because some of you still aren't convinced. Now you've heard 3 white people, and you've heard 1 black person. Now, and then we're going to actually get to the crux of it, because we don't want to stop here. See, I'm not just going to give you a history of reparations. This is a solutions-based channel here. And I know that most of you folks listening here are far too cowardice to even do anything about it. But I hope that the generations, and some of you are, I know there's a couple of you out there, but I hope that the generations who come after us, I hope that they're able to pick this information up and say, you know what? I don't know who Mr. Sperling was, but you know what? I'm going to go ahead and investigate this theory. So when we finish with this scholarly, and because I'm laying the foundation for you, I'm letting you see it's true. There's merits to this. And when we finish, as you guys see, YouTube is messing with my stream here because, yeah, I know this is not something, again, I told you, I've had people tell me not to do this. This is not a broadcast that I should put out, but I'm doing it anyway. All right. So I'm just keeping it 100 with you. But whatever happens, happens. I think this is important and necessary work. And I'm going to continue forward. So, and I think that my ancestors will be proud of that. So this is Dr. Okasua Kirby. She is a African scholar. She is a PhD at the University of Ghana. And I want you to listen to what she has to say. Now, I'm not going to let you hear the whole video because I want to get to my presentation. But I want you to hear some of the things that she has to say. And she's basically talking about African complicity in the Atlantic slave trade. Hit the number 1 button, please.
African memory of this period in history, and how willing are many people to talking about it and revisiting?
Africans remember enslavement so well. The research I've done shows that I've been involved in looking at Ghana in particular from 1990. I've been to about all the 10 regions of the country, conducting interviews with chiefs, elders, state historians, old men and women, anybody who can remember something about enslavement. And it's amazing the kind of information and material I have got about it. Many of them regard enslavement as a very sensitive issue.
Fair use.
And what I've done is that in my research, I've tried to identify with the people. And I've used some of my students in the Department of History. And I've always warned my students that I would want students who come from the area to undertake this research. I don't want somebody who is spending holidays in the area, because a lot of people regard it as so sensitive that if they don't know you, they wouldn't disclose some vital information to you. So the memory is still real, and people are very reluctant to talk about it because it brings up some kind of unpleasant memories sometimes. And I think another reason why is because there were 2 aspects to enslavement in Ghana and in most Africa. There was what I'll call an internal aspect, or what people call an indigenous aspect of enslavement. And then there was an external aspect, that is enslavement between Africa and the outside world, either with the Mediterranean or Red Sea, Indian Ocean world, or with the Atlantic world. And because of this, we still have some memories about both enslavement, especially the indigenous one, because where do you draw the line? There are some families during my research who were reluctant to talk because they could remember that their great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers had brought slaves from Salaga Market, made them part of the household, And therefore, if we are going to now start tracing genealogies, who comes from where, who comes from there, it starts creating problems. So some of them don't want to talk about it.
Is there a memory of lost people who have disappeared, who are part of families, and is there a clear sense of where those people might be?
A few of them, but it wasn't very.
Speaking from that and them, let me know who we're talking about. A few of the people I talked to.
A few of the people I talked to in the course of my research could remember that there was a loss of people, loss of population. Those in the northern part of Ghana, for example, claim that there are still parts in Ghana right now which are desolated because of enslavement.
Okay, you guys, what the lady was saying, what the Dr. Kirby was saying, is that there are some parts of Africa which are still desolate and empty because slavery took so many people, nobody lives there anymore. That's what she's saying. Okay, this was a mechanism. Now, the Arab slave trade existed 1600 years before the transatlantic slave trade. Internal African slave trade existed even before that. It wasn't until the transatlantic slave trade happened that you had folks disappearing from the continent to the point that they would never return. That's how rampant it was. You had over 11 million people taken from the continent of Africa and brought to the New World, be it North America, South America, Central America. Let's go ahead and continue listening.
And they could recall raids and wars.
This woman is saying there are people she interviewed that can recall raids and wars and slavery. So even when you say, everybody who was affected is long gone, that's not even true. There's still people who are grandchildren of people who were taken away. That's not even true. So all the lies have got to stop now. If we're going to have an adult conversation about this, let's get out of our mode. See, the problem with human beings is you see your fellow human beings as competitors and you don't want them to get a leg up. So you got a lot of black folks saying, oh no, everybody's dead. No, you still have people who are grandchildren of people who were slaves in Brazil and Trinidad because slavery ended much later. And then you had the bootleg slavery. Hell, we still celebrate slavery in some parts of Louisiana. If you go down to places like Lake Charles, they have something called contraband days, where they would bring slaves up from the Caribbean and other places. They still celebrate these holidays. And they're still reaping an economic benefit. I'm not talking to you as a historian. I'm a litigator. Now, but I do understand, and I would treat this person as an expert in history to help lay that foundation. Let's continue listening.
Kidnapping and so on. And a friend was telling me that in a certain part of the northern country, a place called Sandema, every year when they have a festival, they bring out certain artifacts connected with enslavement. And they've an ethnic song in Ghana.
Okay, Professor Kirby, talk to me about, looking back in time, how did the trade operate? How were people captured and what happened?
Listen.
The picture of the past enslavement in Ghana or Africa is one in which you find different means of acquiring slaves. I can identify about 5 major means of acquisition. The first was through warfare, and that was really a major means of.
You hear that? The first was, she's going to now explain to you how our African ancestors were brought to this country and the Western Hemisphere. Now, here's my problem with these people who have been working on this reparations thing for decades and years. If you had some balls, and if you had some courage, and if you were able to set aside your emotion, you could have got here a lot sooner. Because for the most part, you're ignoring the elephant in the room. How in the hell did the Africans get on the boat in the first place? How did they get to the shore in the first place? So all of your work has been incompetent because you haven't answered the right questions. You're too emotionally involved. You see, the problem is that the issue of reparations has been left to people who are historians, people who are so-called Pan-Africanists. It has not been put in the possession of businessmen and lawyers. See, I don't want to hear from you historians about, oh, this, that, and the other. No, we're looking at this purely from the position of whether or not there are merits to a case wherein African Americans, Jamaicans, those Africans in the Caribbean, South America, Central America, have a right to pursue a claim against these Ghanaian nations that exist now for what their predecessors did in the past. That's it. And if you hadn't got to that point in the 50 to 100 years you've been working on reparations, then you've wasted your time and everybody else's time. So just save that. Let's go put that work that you did in file 13, the trash can, and move forward. Let's continue.
Position. Now, I don't think we want to enter into that debate whether the wars were fought because of enslavement or enslavement was incidental to the wars, because there's still a disagreement. But what I have found in my own research as I talk to
fair use
chiefs, elders, and so on, is that enslavement was incidental to the wars which were fought in Ghana. In other words, the wars were not.
Now, I appreciate this lady, and what she's saying is, we don't want to argue about whether or not the slavery was incidental to warfare or whether or not the whole purpose of the war was to get slaves. I'm going to go with the latter. And the reason I'm going to go to the latter, because it ain't that goddamn much to fight over. What are you getting more guns for? You get more, the more guns you get, the more war you have. The more war you have, the more slaves you get. I get that. Okay. So, but what you don't hear is white men coming into the interior of Africa. That's what you don't hear. You don't hear any of that. If you want to check this video out, it will be available to anybody. If you just Google this doctor's name, it's there. In the meantime, now we're going to start the legal presentation, because that's what I want to get to. If you haven't figured it out by now, then you're not going to figure it out. You get it. Okay. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get this set up, and we'll be right back with some groundbreaking work. Y'all make sure y'all hit the #1 button, and make sure you let me know where you're checking in from.
Hey, I'm about to show you something.
had the best 3 years. I had the best 3 years of my life in prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting for you to say that, bro, because you had millions.
I had peace, though.
Over the $30 million for one fight? Jay-Z's lying.
Hey, listen, can I tell you something? That don't mean nothing when you don't have your peace, your stability, your balance. You don't give a fuck. You don't even want it. You want to give it to somebody else. Yeah. You need your sanity to dictate any part of life. Because, you know, God, I always tell people, God punishes you by giving you everything you want. See if you can handle it.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds.
Welcome back to the broadcast. I hope you all are appreciating this. We are through with the initial presentation of the historical facts that many of you may have not been aware of. And now we're going to go on to the legal arguments. Now, the thing is, any lawyer, when he's preparing to file a lawsuit against someone, there are some basic things that he wants to figure out. Who can sue? Where do we sue? When do we sue? Or should I say, how much time do we have to sue them? And whether or not the court has the authority to sue this particular person, okay? Now, reparations has failed by those who have been in charge of reparations because they've been begging. They've been asking people to give them something, and nobody's going to give you anything in this world. Those of you who follow my page understand that I don't operate like that. I never have. When you begin begging people for things, you're starting off on the wrong foot. You're basically you're negotiating from a point of weakness, which is never going to get you anywhere. What you have to do, and anybody will tell you this, is that you negotiate from a position of power. You literally negotiate with people and I mean this figuratively. I don't want you psychos and weirdos out there in the internet to do this. But you negotiate with them while, you know, from the barrel of a loaded gun, basically. That's what you do. So here's what I propose you do, and I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Anything you all have been asking of these African countries, at the point where you begin to file suit and you threaten to take trillions of dollars from them over the next, I don't know, 2 dozen years, then you'll get whatever you want in spades. That's how that works. I know. Oh my God, that sounds so treacherous. That's how the world works. And if we began to operate like that a long time ago, then we would be much further now. Unfortunately, and again, as our ancestors failed us in that regard because they were too soft-hearted, just like many of you, and you still romanticize Africa. That's the problem that we have. Now, here's the thing I want to bring up. I found this on the internet. I'm going to introduce this to you. And this is just a little blurb, and it just happened to show up. I know, you know, my ancestors are with me on this, you know, because this is what just showed up on the internet the other day. And this is the perfect fact pattern for me to use. All right. So y'all make sure, and I'm going to hide this young lady's name here because I don't want to make anybody mad with me. Okay. But I want y'all to check this out. So here's the fact pattern. Anybody who's been in law school, they know what I mean. All right. So the last slave cargo, Clotilda, arrived in Mobile, Alabama in 1860, carrying 108 Africans. My relatives were on that boat. Since then, my grandfather traced his roots back to Ghana. He has passed on, but that country of Ghana honored him upon arrival. He has shared so many wonderful stories about the people of Ghana. He also mentioned that villages did fight for our freedom. Some died, so our people did fight for us. Yes, some of our people did fight for us, but we wouldn't have had 11 million of us sold off if the vast majority of our people had fought for us. And I get it. This is a very soft, sweet, sympathetic story. But the truth is, those people who were fighting were probably fighting because, hey, they participated in it, but now they got their own children and fathers being taken. I get it. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to prove the case. But as far as the empathy and the merits, let's throw that out the window. Some died. Some of our people did fight for us, but white supremacy won. No, we won. What do I mean by that? We who are over there, those who ran the government, those who ran the nations, the royalty, they won. Okay, thanks for sharing this tour. I plan to visit soon, and happy Ghana Republic today. All right, so I send that young woman a text message. I have no problem doing that. What we're going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and start this presentation if I can get these videos up. When my screen went blank, I lost all the good research I had done and had it all primed and ready for you guys. But we're going to get back to it. If y'all with me, hit the #1 button. If you think this is worthwhile, if you guys appreciate what I'm doing, I mean, again, I'm telling you, like, I had a lot of people not happy with me doing this. But, you know, I'm from South Central LA. I'm a hardhead. So I'm going to do it anyway. And that's on everything because it needs to be done. Now, again, so let's take, for instance, this young woman that we saw here. Her ancestors can trace their roots back to a slave ship that was brought here in 1860. At that time, the United States government was in place and its laws were in place. Now, there's something that many of you all don't know, and I'm going to share it with you. In 1808, the international slave trade was outlawed here in the United States. In 1807, the international slave trade was outlawed in Great Britain. So what that means is any slaves brought to the United States after 1808 were brought illegally. Now, there are intelligent people in here who already see where I'm going. You already figured it out. Oh, wow. So you're saying those people who were brought from Ghana in 1860 were brought to this country illegally. You got it already, right? That's the swift ones amongst you. Okay? Now, the act was referred to, or the act prohibiting the importation of slaves in 1807 went into effect on January 1st, 1808. Now, I actually have a printout of the actual text of that act, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. You guys are with me? Hit the #1 button. Let me know. If you can see this clearly, let me know. So it says this: on March 2nd, 1807, the U.S. Congress passed a landmark piece of legislation to end the profitable international slave trade. President Thomas Jefferson, who had promoted the legislation, promptly signed the act, making it law. The act went into effect on January 1st, 1808, prohibiting from that time on the importation of African slaves to the United States. That same year, the United Kingdom, the UK, enacted the Slave Trade Act in 1807. So you may be asking yourselves, if the international slave trade was outlawed in 1808 and 1807 by both the United States and England, how in the hell did these people get the slaves from Ghana to Alabama. How did that happen? They got it over here illegally. That's how they did it. But the thing is, those same African countries, when slavery became illegal, they fought against it. That's the problem. Because remember, they had become addicted to the slave selling money. Their whole lifestyle, their whole country their economy was based on the slave trade. And so because of that, they couldn't just say, oh, well, you white people want to give it up, but this is what we've been doing for the last 400 or 500 years. Y'all want us to just quit? Nah, we're going to keep selling these slaves. But at that point, the country of Ghana was in violation of American law, European law also. But in American law, specifically for the conversation we're having here, the 1807 Act was a compromise attempt to close the slave trade. By passing the law in March, Congress gave all slave traders 9 months to close down in their operations in the United States. This act did not, however, abolish the practice of slavery within the United States or the domestic slave. So you still have people being traded as slaves here in the United States, but bringing slaves from Africa was wrong. But they wouldn't be able to bring any slaves from Africa had those African kings and royalty stopped putting them in those ships, stop putting them on the coast for them to pick up. That's the part. Now, here's the thing I want you to check out. Here's the actual act of 1807. This is the law. This is the law right here. An act to prohibit the importation of slaves into any port or place within the jurisdiction of the United States from and after the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1808. That's 1808. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled that from and after the first day of January 1808, it shall not be lawful to import or bring into the United States or territories thereof from any foreign kingdom, place, or country any Negro, any mulatto. Let me put this back up here. I want y'all to see that clear. Okay, let's make this a bigger. Any Negro, mulatto, person of color with intent to wholesale or dispose of such Negro, mulatto, or person of color as a slave or to be held service or labor. Okay. Now, and it be further enacted that no citizen of the United States or no citizen or citizens of the United States or any other person shall from aired after the first day of January in 1908 for himself, themselves, any other person whatsoever, ever, either as master, factor, owner, builder, fit. So anybody who's building ships, everybody is responsible, okay, from any foreign kingdom, place, whatever. Now, this goes on, but what I want to skip down to here is a section where it says this, and be it further enacted. Let me slide down here real quick. And be it further enacted that all and every person so building, fitting out, equipping, loading, or otherwise preparing or sending away any ship or vessel, knowing or intending that the same shall be employed in such trade or business from and after the first day of January, 1808, contrary to the true intent and meaning of this act, or any ways of aiding and abetting, this will be your African royalty here, therein shall severely forfeit and pay $20,000. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot right now, but if you get the equivalent amount of money of $20,000 in 2022 and beyond, that's about $500,000. And one moiety, which is basically interest, more or less. I think you guys, there's some mathematicians up in here. Y'all can figure that out. Thereof, to the use of the United States, and other moiety to the use of any person who shall sue for the prosecute this same effect. This is on the books right now. So what this is saying is, if any person who is found to be shipping slaves over here after 1808, you can sue them for $20,000. And the percentage points. That's what that's saying. So that gives rise to a monetary reward. Now, if you dig down in here, there's another award for $5,000 for violating the war. By the time you get through adding all this up and figuring out how much it would be in modern day time period, you're looking at $1 million per person, more or less. I mean, you could figure it out any kind of way you want to, but that's not what we want to get into too deep. We can do the numbers later. But the bottom line is there's a law in the books which makes bringing slaves to the United States from Africa or anywhere else, which probably means the Caribbean, the way it's read, there's a law in the books which makes that a penalty that you have to pay. Do you guys understand that? There's a law in the books which says if you're caught bringing Africans from Africa or Negroes or mulatto from some other case, from some other place, there's a law in the books that said you have to pay a penalty for that, a financial penalty to the person who wins that case. Does that make sense to you all? Do you all see that? Does anybody see the brilliance in that? So now the question is, okay, so we understand the history. We recognize that there's a good faith basis to file suit against these African royalty who ruled at the time, right? We get that, right? So now we go through our basic lawyer process. Who do we sue? Well, what a lot of our folks here in the internet are going to tell you is that those kingdoms don't exist anymore. That's what isn't that right? I believe after 1857, Ghana moved from being it moved to be a government, right? That's what you guys are going to tell me? Okay. How many of y'all are familiar with corporations laws? Better yet, I got a better one for you. How many of you all have bought houses which are in debt? Anybody? How many of you all have bought houses that are in debt? And I know y'all mad. I know a lot of you soft Negroes are mad. How dare he? How dare he not blame the British? I want my money from everybody. I'm not talking to you as your friend. I'm talking to you as an attorney. Here you are. You've been damaged by different culprits, and you want me to pick and choose between them. All of them had their hand in the cookie jar. But because you like one more than you like, 3 people shot you, and you only want me to sue one of them. What kind of idiot are you? All of them shot you. I know that was your friend that shot you, but he shot you nonetheless. The reason your reparations arguments have failed because you haven't brought everybody in. I just told y'all earlier, if you want what you want, you need to start suing people and taking what you want. The minute you sue somebody, they're going to look around for somebody else who might be responsible for it, and they're probably going to interplead them in. That's normally how a case works. You don't have any money to sue these major corporations. You don't have enough money to sue Chase Bank. You don't have enough money to sue that. But the country of Ghana does. And so does the country of Nigeria. And we'll talk about their assets later on. I did that research too. Stop being idiots. Stop being weak. Stop being soft. Some of you are sitting back and it's just turning your stomach because you romanticize Africa too damn much. It's the same way you romanticize dope dealers and drug dealers and people who are in prison. Stop giving people the benefit of the doubt when they don't deserve it. Everybody gets held responsible for what they've done. So stop being weak. That's all I'm saying, family. You want to know why the reparations argument never went anywhere? Because of folks like you, because you're too weak. That's why I told y'all before I got started, this conversation is for the generations to come. You still weak and soft. You're not like me. You can't see it for what it is. You wanted answers. Here's your answer. You've been talking about reparations for almost 100 years. Now I'm giving you a viable course of action you can move through. All those reparations people that came before you, reparations. They didn't do nothing. They didn't show you that law. They're not going to show you what I'm about to show you now. So cut it out. Take it, do with it what you want to do with it, but don't complain about it anymore because it's been done. Now let's move on. All right, so who do we sue? Well, here's the thing. Basic corporations law says that if you take over a corporation through a merger and an acquisition, you not only inherit that corporation's assets, but you also inherit that corporation's debts. Now, at some point in the 1950s, Ghana became a republic. And we're just using Ghana because Nigeria, Togo, Benin, the Congo, Sierra Leone, Liberia, all of those folks are responsible, fam. You see what I'm saying? All of those people are responsible, period. Somebody said, I'm pushing the line tonight. I just want to win. I'm about winning. If you about winning, stay here. If you want to keep losing, you can lose by yourself. We don't do that here. We win here. So let's talk about how we get this win. Can I get an amen for the ancestors? How about that? So let's go over here. And I'm at the Wikipedia page. And it amazes me, right? Now that you got white people talking about it, you know, now everybody wants to talk about it. Isn't that something? You black folks are just scary as you can be. The minute white folks start talking about getting your money back from the folks from the African, now, oh yeah, that's a good idea. You're colonized. You're mad at the colonizers, but you the colonized. You still colonized. But let's go ahead and look at this. Just a little quick history. I'm not trying to do a history lesson, but I'm just trying to prove a point here. So you got the country of Ghana. This is their history. Basically, around 1957 or something, they took over and they became a country. All right. This is approximately 103 years after the last folk that was sent that we know of, at least based on that young lady's fact pattern. This is 97 years after those folks were sent over there to Alabama from Ghana, in which that young lady has already proved her lineage, right? Apparently they already have records to demonstrate, to show, to prove, that can be authenticated, to prove that her people, those 108 Africans, started in Ghana over here and ended up in Alabama when slavery was illegal. The importation of slaves was illegal. So what happened? Well, this country was taken over by this republic, this group of royals, and I believe they call it. I mean, I don't know enough about this. Would be an expert would have to talk about this, and I'm not an expert in history. I'm just the lawyer prosecuting the case, and I'm telling you, who do we sue? We sue the people who ended up taking over this land and this country, which wasn't a country at the time, from these royals, and that is called the Republic of Ghana. Okay, so that's who you sue. Who has standing to sue? That means somebody said we're not getting nothing from Africa. Let me just go ahead and skip ahead for you players. Occidental announces sale of Ghana assets, $750 million. That's right here in the United States, boo. That's right here in the USA. I don't have to get anything from Ghana. I can get it from Ghana's bank account here in the United States. How about that? Since we're not getting anything from Ghana, keep playing. Keep playing with this game. You don't know who you're dealing with. We are not our ancestors. And I hope you feel me on that. And I don't mean literally, I mean on the E40 Bay Area. I hope you feel me on that, player. You're going to feel this because somebody's going to pick this information up and they're going to roll with it. But anyway, we'll move back. We'll move back to that later. Bottom line, it's there. The money is there. And so let's keep going. So now you got the country. Who do you sue? All right. Now, the other question we have to ask ourselves is, where do we sue? Now, this is a little bit more complicated, but y'all can roll with me. If you with me, hit the number 1 button. I want everybody in the chat room to type this word. Type in venue. Type in venue. Somebody say venue, okay? Those of you guys who went to law school, venue, right? What is venue? Y'all been to a venue. Where you going? That's the place where you're partying. Well, in the legal sense of the word, the venue is the proper place to litigate a case, okay? Now, I got this wonderful argument, this wonderful article here that came out in April 2018. I read a lot of these things because as a lawyer, that's what we do. Suing a sovereign, consider the correct venue in U.S. federal court. Okay, so basically, without going too far into it, it says you can sue where it happened, where that cause of action happened, or you can sue in Washington, D.C. I'm going to read the article a little bit because I want y'all to, get a gist of what we're saying. Before bringing an action in U.S. federal court, a party should examine various considerations. Venue is one. Now, we've talked about the consideration. Who we're going to sue? Theoretically, the Republic of Ghana. Why? Because at that time, and I got some treaties up here. I wish the doggone screen went blank on me. But I had an article that showed that these corporations from Europe had struck, and the European government had struck treaties with the Ghanaian royalty, okay? And actually that lady who I showed you, that doctor, call me Killmonger tonight. I'm Killmonger. Yeah, Killmonger was right. That should be a quote. Killmonger was right. Y'all type Killmonger in the chat room. Killmonger was right. But anyway, let me get back to the subject. Before bringing an action in the U.S. federal court, a party should examine various considerations. Venue is one such consideration that is often overlooked, even if a court has personal jurisdiction over an entity and subject matter jurisdiction over the matter to be decided. The question of whether the court is appropriate venue still must be evaluated. In other words, personal jurisdiction is whether or not I have jurisdiction over this particular person to make them do what I do what I want them to do. Subject matter jurisdiction is whether or not I have a right to even hear this subject. You don't take a land dispute case to a family law court, right? Because the family law court doesn't have subject matter jurisdiction. Federal courts have subject matter jurisdiction over foreign sovereigns, right? That's something that came about some time back. But bottom line is we got that, and we got personal jurisdiction. Now the question is venue, and we'll deal with that in detail later. I'm just giving you a schematic, right? This is some basic stuff. I just want you folks to know it can be done. Generally speaking, the question of venue in U.S. federal court is governed by 28 U.S.C. 1391, which is a federal statute. One of its rules provides that venue is proper where a substantial part of the events or omissions given rise to the claim occurred. So here we're talking about the theft of Africans who are then brought to the United States, specifically Alabama, in that fact pattern that we use. And for those of you guys who missed it, it's in there. You can rewind this and look at it. They were brought from Ghana to, they have paperwork. They were brought from Ghana, the number of 108 Africans brought to Alabama. What happened? The theft happened in Ghana, okay? The shipping happened overseas. So when we say it, all that happened when they got here, they just landed here. So the question is, did the quasi-crime, did this violation of the Slave Importation Act, did it happen here? Or did a substantial portion happen here or somewhere else? And in this situation, we're going to say, nah, it happened in Africa and it happened on the high seas. So that's an iffy question. And you don't want to leave that up to a federal judge, right? So the question you're asking yourself is there a better venue where I know I can bring this case? A substantial part of the events or omissions of giving rise to the claim occurred. Venue also would be appropriate in a district where the defendants are located or where the property at issue is located. That's kind of, the property at the time. Africans were slaves. Africans were property. There was slavery in Alabama. So they were property, but those people aren't there anymore. So these rules are kind of, hey, you know, choose the best place possible. But here's what I want you to want to show you guys. The place where venue is, well, there was a case where the Ukraine, the country of Ukraine, was sued in the Southern District of New York, and for racketeering, fraud, theft, and they sued the government. Right now, the Judge Broderick, eventually dismissed the case and said, "Yeah, you got personal jurisdiction over Ukraine, and you got subject matter jurisdiction over Ukraine, but what you complaining about happened over in Ukraine. The fraud and deceit and the theft, that happened over there. So I'm going to dismiss your case." All right. So the question now is, damn, where is venue proper? Well, good thing for us, the good old legislators that came up with this said that basically venue is always proper, or let me read it like this, under 28 U.S.C. 1391 F4, providing that any civil action against a foreign state or political subdivision can be brought in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. So shout out to the DMV. That's what that's saying. This can be brought in the DMV. Okay? This lawsuit, theoretically, against the country of Ghana, the Republic of Ghana, is always proper for violation of the Slave Act of 1808, or their participation is proper in the District of Columbia. All right. Do y'all know what DC is? Of course you do. It's right up there near Virginia and Maryland. Right? So that's where venue is proper. We've already established that the federal court has jurisdiction, both subject matter jurisdiction over the Republic of Ghana and personal jurisdiction over the Republic of Ghana. Because why? Because they got an embassy there. But that's why it's proper here. Okay? So now you got those basic questions answered. Now, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to load up some more videos. Not videos. I'm going to load up some more information. Y'all hit the #1 button. I'll be right back.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. I hope you all appreciating this. I'm enjoying this. I know some people that are not enjoying it, but I'm having a blast. Y'all make sure y'all hit the #1 button and show appreciation for what I'm doing out here in these YouTube streets. This is not something you're going to get everywhere because everybody don't want to hit nothing like this. It's a little too complicated for folk. But anyway, I want to talk to you guys about a couple of cases, okay? One is a case against, we'll call it, you guys remember the 9/11 thing that happened back in 9/11 in 2001? Well, we end up suing the Saudi Arabian government for their participation in helping fund those people who committed those horrible acts. And it came about almost 20 years later, 16 years later, 15 years later, by an act that was passed by the House of Representatives and the Senate. Matter of fact, Obama vetoed it, and then the Senate and the House came back and overruled his veto. Now, this happened 16 years after the incident. Now, typically, the statute of limitations for any case, any tort, is a year. It could be 2 years. It could be 4 years. This happened almost 15 years later. So they made a special exception for it in the Senate. Now, the reason I bring that up is because obviously, if you want to sue the Republic of Ghana for something that they participated in back in 1860, you're going to have a statute of limitations issued because that's far more than 2 or 3 years. So what you have to do is you have to contemplate the fact that, okay, I can file this lawsuit. I can allege what happened. I have my people who are going to sue these descendants, these heirs of these descendants of these 108 Africans that were snatched from Ghana in violation of the Anti-Slavery Act of 1807, brought to the United States. And so the heirs of those people would be the heirs. Those would be the people who have standing. I know this case is more likely, even though we could file in Alabama, it might be better to file in D.C. because we know venue is proper there. We definitely don't want to file in state court because the state court doesn't have subject matter jurisdiction. So we definitely want to file in federal court. And we want to be able to file in federal court because in D.C. because they'll have personal jurisdiction over the Ghana, because Ghana has what? Ghana does business in the United States, blah, 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 blah. And therefore they won't, they can't escape and say, you can't tell us what to do because we are never over there. So everything works in DC. All right. Now the question is statute of limitations. How do I get around the fact that this thing is old, right? So there's something called knew or should have known. Those of you guys who practice law in environmental practice, oftentimes you get sick. You get asbestos because you worked at a plant 50 years ago, but you just found out that you had mesothelioma or something like that last year. Typically, you have 1 year or 3 years from the date that you knew or should have known where this came from to file suit. So if you began, let's say theoretically, if you began to do your work right now to find out who your ancestors are, where they came from, whether or not they're bills of sales, you could theoretically say, hey, we fall under knew or should have known because this was an illegal act. There's an act that says I'm entitled to $20,000 and we would upgrade that to whatever the value of that is now. Now they might just say $20,000, but then you could also say $20,000 and multiply that for the interest for the past 140 years. It's getting up there. Okay. This is what I'm saying, family. There's a possibility there. And it's much better than you all begging and gotten your hand out asking white folks to pay you, right? That's not going to happen. Now, let me tell you something about white folks, Europeans. They may not want to give you any of their money, but they'll be certainly happy to help you get some money from these African countries. Now, again, I talked to you guys a little bit about this earlier. I want you guys to check this out. Some of you all are always saying, oh, these African countries are broke. They don't have any money. I want you to look at this. This is just an article that was from 2021. And this is right here in Houston. Today announced it has agreed to sell its interest in 2 Ghana offshore fields for $750 million to Cosmos Energy. Do you know what that means? That means they got 2 fields, 2 oil fields or whatever, natural gas fields or whatever, that's worth $750 million. All right? So when our good brothers from the motherland tell us that they don't have any money, they just lying. You don't have to have any money. You got resources, you got oil. Now, it wouldn't take that much to seize this or put a lien on that at all if you were able to get a judgment. You got some procedural hurdles you got to get around, but I'm telling you, begging for it is not going to get you anywhere, okay? Begging is not going to get you anywhere. Now, I want to show you something else. Shout out to all my folks in Nigeria. Here's another one for you. Nigerian, United States enters agreement with Nigeria to repatriate $23 million. U.S. repatriates $311 million. U.S. takes control of $480 million stolen by the Nigerian dictator. They got a lot of money over there. You see what I mean? They have oil fields too. So it's not like they don't have assets here in the United States that if you were able to get a judgment, they would have to pay. It can happen. Now, there's a few other little procedural things. I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat room. I want to hear what intelligent people have to say about this. Now, again, this is just me talking to you guys for the past hour and a half. There's only so much I can do. It's going to take hundreds of hours of research. It's going to take teams of lawyers. It's going to take people who are dedicated. It's going to take a lot of funding to fight these cases. But this is a possibility. And you may have to get some little tweaks and some legislation change. But if those 9/11 families could get it, if you're dedicated, you can get it too. But once it's done, now you don't have to ask for reparations from the government, from the American government anymore. You can go and take it from the people who got this thing started in the first place. That's all I'm saying. This is a suggestion that I'm presenting to you, family. This is a suggestion that I'm presenting to you. You don't have to follow my instructions. You don't have to follow this plan at all. It's merely another avenue. You ask for reparations. Here's another avenue you can try. It's a legally based one. You say you're owed something. If you really believe you're owed reparations, then you would go through every avenue possible. If you were Jewish people, I wouldn't have to tell you twice. I certainly wouldn't. If you were Native Americans, I wouldn't have to tell you twice. But because you got a soft spot in your heart for your African Nigerian brother, you got your wallet and your heart connected, and that you're going to fail every time. You want reparations? Stop whining about it. That's what I'm telling you, folks. The link is in the chat room. I got a few other things I want to share with you guys, but I want y'all to make sure y'all hit the #1 button. And some of you still said, we want it from the gut. We want it from, why do you want, here's what I don't understand. Why do you care which defendant pays you your money? I want somebody to come in and answer that question. All of these defendants are culpable, but you're more concerned with which one of the defendants pays you, whether or not, do you want your money or not? That's my question. Do you want your money or not? If you don't want your money, tell me, I shut this down. Don't ask me for nothing else no more. Do you want your money or not? It's a simple question, fam. But anyway, I want to bring in Derek Hollingsworth. Derek, if you're here, you're welcome to come in, brother. He was one of the first people I spoke with about this conversation. Derek, if you're able to come in, go ahead and come in. I hope you're listening. I see he's here up on the screen. We'll give him a chance to come in. Y'all make sure y'all hit the #1 button, and I'll be right back.
27 cents on the dollar.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. I appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Donate to the Super Chat. Donate to the PayPal. Donate to the Cash App. It's your contributions and your donations that'll cause for this platform to grow. Let our voice be the preeminent voice in Black America.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Y'all appreciate this conversation? Got y'all up in uproar? I mean, probably not something you're used to seeing on YouTube. I can always talk about the latest actor or rapper who fell out of love with somebody or fell in love with somebody or whatever, but I thought this would be a little bit better. Since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and be about it. Let's see here. Yeah, so I'm not here you don't have to critique me on the history. I don't care. That's for the experts in history to determine. You understand? That's what I'm saying. That's for the experts in history to determine. All I need to know are the facts. You see? So let me get, because what I'm also going to do, I'm looking for the treaties. There's a book about all the treaties signed between the Africans and those European countries that show they knew exactly what was going on. Okay? So that's the thing I was kind of looking for. But again, doggone thing got dismissed. But anyway, Douglas, welcome. Evan, gentleman named Free Game, welcome to the conversation. Anybody else who wants to come in, you're welcome to come in. Douglas, welcome to the broadcast, man. I know you got an earful here.
How you doing today, bro?
I'm a man, Alvin. What are your thoughts?
I think that you're right, that if you did do that and went through the federal court and froze their bank accounts, we could then turn around and maybe get them to award us about 500 million acres. So We 42 million
Do we
population.
really want
so
land? Do we really want land? Do you really want to live over there?
Not necessarily land, but create a satellite because
Sierra Leone. Yeah, I want land.
Hold on a minute, Devin. Hold on a minute, Devin. We got to get everybody in. Okay, but see, here's the thing. There are people who may not want land. They might just want their money. And you can't be mad at them for that.
The land for they say us as a people own 500 million acres in Africa, and then we turn around and mine those natural resources and then started in manufacturing. The whole process of
okay, see, here's the thing. I want to, you know what I want to do, Douglas? I want to stay focused on this lawsuit. The avenue that I'm choosing, as opposed to begging people for something. Let's just go ahead and take it because it's all right to do. You see what I mean?
Know what I mean? Take it through your
but let me finish. Let me finish.
Yeah,
when we start talking about land and what we gonna get, then we get mired down in the garbly, and then the conversation just ends. You see what I mean? The first thing I want people to understand, and we'll go to Devin. The first thing. Have we proven the case that we have a culpable party, i.e. these African royalty, who predated the Republic of Ghana? And that goes for all of those countries, okay? Have I proven to you that they were culpable? Did they participate? And if you don't believe they participated, here's the funny thing. If you don't believe that they were guilty, clearly after 1808, you know they were guilty because they were still doing it after the British government said, no, we shutting this down. We're not doing this anymore. And they still were going into the interior of Africa, bringing slaves to the coast for those illegal slave traders. And you have an example where that young lady said they brought them from Ghana in 1860 and they ended up in Alabama in 1860. So clearly there's something. Now look, let me say this. We running up on 2 hours. I'm tired. If you guys want me to keep going, you're going to have to hit the number one, but you're going to have to do something. You see what I mean? But I'm getting tired. I've been at it 2 hours. I do want to continue this conversation, but you're going to have to do what you got to do. Hit the thumbs up button, do something. We got to some participation, or we'll have to continue this another time. Maybe you'll find somebody else. Maybe you'll wait another 50 years and some other lawyer will pop up and give you this information. I doubt it. Devin, have we proven the case as far as the culpability of these Ghanaians? Oh, unmute yourself, brother.
Oh, we have grounds and standing in the United States federal court.
Let me ask you again, brother. Have we proven the culpability? Do we have the right party? Because see, we can't get past that. We can't talk about procedure because some black folks are still convinced, the Africans didn't know what they were doing. Have we demonstrated through the evidence from their scholars and the white folk that been knowing that these folk knew exactly what they was doing when they were selling our black behinds to them Europeans and bringing them to the beach? Have we proved that point?
And where we haven't proven, we can prove because we have the technology and we have the intellectual horsepower to trace that. Just like we also have the power to trace the banks that started.
I'm just looking at tonight. You saw their own scholars saying they knew what they were doing.
Yes.
We had a descendant of one of them saying, we knew what we were doing. We did it. We sorry, but we still ain't trying to give y'all no money about it, but we knew what we were doing, right?
So we could take that to the world court, now.
Right. So see that you don't want to sue people for nothing. If there's an innocent party, you don't want to sue them. That's a frivolous lawsuit. You see what I mean? But the first hurdle, the biggest hurdle I have to get over with folks, is get your guts up. Come on, get your heart, get your blood up. They did something to you. Their own scholars say they did it. Why are you still denying? Why are you still listening to fools on the internet, right? Who are basically basing all their research on videos they saw on the internet. They ain't read nothing. Half of them don't have passports. They haven't done any serious research. But now their own scholars are saying, Dr. Peabry, their own scholars saying, yeah, we did it. So we've convinced y'all. Now, okay, Alvin, and I got Mr. Hollingsworth in here. Alvin, the next question I have for you. Okay, so we talked about some procedure, and I know I'm not certain about what you know about the practice of law. We've demonstrated that venue is proper. In other words, where can we sue the Republic of Ghana? Or let me establish this. We understand that the Republic of Ghana wasn't there in 1860. We get that. But what we also understand is that there was something there, and the Republic of Ghana took that over, right? Those people said, we're going to merge and we're going to acquire, we're going to do mergers and acquisitions into this thing. You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so now those people, not only did they inherit the land and the wealth, they also inherited the debts, Alvin.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? You inherited the debts too. Just like y'all want the queen to pay. Y'all want the queen to pay y'all reparations, right? You want the queen of England to pay you reparations, but you don't want the which is a government now, right? That's a government. But you don't want these kings and queens in Africa to pay you because you say that country didn't exist. It's the same thing. I don't get that. But either way, so we proved that. So now let's move forward to the procedural stuff. Venue is proper according to the federal rules of civil procedure. Venue would be proper to sue a sovereign in the District Court of Washington, D.C. That federal court would have subject matter jurisdiction. They would also have personal jurisdiction. Is that evident? I showed you the law. It ain't me. This is not Dennis Sperling talking. This is the law on the books right now, right? And we also demonstrated that under the Act of 1807 or 1808, bringing slaves from Africa or anywhere other than the United States where slavery was still legal, bringing them over here was an illegal act. So we proved not only that a crime was committed, which means there's conversion, negligence, intentional torts, all these other common law claims, along with a federal violation of statute, right? Absolutely. Somebody said a cotter strikes back. Do y'all know a cotter means stray cat? A stray cat will weigh your ass out. That's what we have. We're gonna weigh your ass out for that. All the cotters stand. We're gonna scratch shit all in your yard, pee on the side. We're gonna weigh you out. But I'm just kidding. Let me stop. That's a little joke. But anyway, I embrace all the ugly babies. That's the legal term. You show me an ugly fact, I'm gonna present it to the jury wrapped up. Hey, I know it's a wrapped up piece of shit. But anyway, this is it. So y'all see it ahead of time. But anyway, do you get what I'm saying, Alvin?
Absolutely.
We prove that procedure. Now, you're going to have an issue with the statute of limitations. Maybe. Because let me tell you what might happen. You might sue them, and they might not even show up to court. Did you know that?
I could see that.
You may file a suit against the country of Ghana on behalf of your families and your relative, and say, yeah, we were descended from Uncle Pete. You know he was an African? No, I didn't know that. Wow. Well, we got a claim. Okay, well, let's start an estate for him, blah, 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 and file suit. See what happens. They might not show up. I would think they would be more responsible for that, but if they don't, it'd be a horrible mistake for them not to. But if there comes about a statute of limitations challenge, say, well, we just found out about that. The court is going to say, well, did you know? When did you find out? Well, we just found out. We didn't know and no way we could have known. Okay, well, I'm going to dismiss it. Okay, well, we're going to appeal it. And then you say, well, can we stay? Or is there some legislation that supports it? Well, let's look at what they did here in this in this 9/11 Act that these folk got.
Yeah, that sets precedent, right? Or at least in that direction.
I mean, law is not made in a vacuum. So if you got state-sponsored terrorism, there can be nothing worse than slavery. Right? That's right up there with that, right? 100%. So that's an idea. That's an argument. And see, the thing is, Alvin, just like Plessy versus Ferguson, let's go ahead and get some on the books. Let's get something on the books. And then 80 years from now, maybe somebody who's a lot smarter than us, like a Thurgood Marshall, will come along and then finish out what we started. But let's not be cowards anymore. Let's not be soft-hearted. You understand? Yeah. I want to jump over to my man, Derek Hollingsworth, because these folks are not making any donations, and we probably going to end this thing at 2 hours, because if y'all don't appreciate what I'm doing and you can't even hit the like button and y'all not even making contributions, I'm going to end it. All I was asking for earlier was just to hit the thumbs up button. Y'all not even hitting the thumbs up button, which means y'all not really feeling this. And that's unfortunate, because when I'm in here talking about crap and gobbledygook and this girl and that girl and how you should treat y'all all in it. But since you're not contributing, I want to get my man Derek Hollingsworth in real quick and let him say his piece. But if you want me to stay, you're gonna have to pay for this. But we don't even have enough likes in here to stay. Brother Derek, welcome to the broadcast. Feel free to share with whatever you want to share. I don't want to go too deep in your business, but I did introduce you earlier. This gentleman is probably the reason why I said there are probably some people out there who will take this seriously. He literally paid me for a consultation to ask me about what his family specifically should do about reparations. We talked the other day via Zoom. Brother, would you like to share your story at all? Anything you want to say?
Good evening, brothers. How are you?
Good, brother. Good.
Good. I won't take up too much of your time. I appreciate you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say that you're not a victim. You're a victor. There's nothing wrong with looking at the past and seeing how certain entities not only got payment, but flourished under the enslavement of your ancestors. They don't have any problem with passing the money down through their families and bloodlines. You shouldn't have any problem going and getting what's belong or owed to you. For me, my DNA is linked to Nigeria, Togo, Benin, and Edo, Benin, and Essan, Benin. And I would say that it's not an attack on them. It's not any type of retaliatory action towards the current brothers and sisters there today. This has to do with what is right and what is just. No one is going to hand anything over to you that is owed to you until you open your mouth and say with a commanding voice that you want it. So, in talking with Uncle D, there was something that I was not aware of. The Slave Trade Act of 1794 by the Congress of George Washington. In that, not only was there legislation passed that made it illegal here to bring in slaves transcontinentally, transatlantically, but there were also abolitionists that were incentivized to snitch on trade or ships, on anybody harboring or bringing slaves over. These were not only our brothers and sisters, these were also Caucasians. And not only were they allowed to get paid a bounty, but they were usually able to keep whatever was on that ship as well, minus the slaves. It was a lucrative side.
He froze up. Froze, Derek.
I think he meant side.
Too much truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, man.
Get back. He and I had a really detailed conversation, even more so. Yeah, he and I had a really detailed conversation, even more so than we're having here. Okay, brother Derek, you want to continue?
Yes. Thank you. I apologize for the interruption.
Oh no, that's fine. It's fine. Take your time.
There is a incentivization that was happening in those times that allowed the people to not only fight back with their hands, but with their actions and with their morals and ethics. They didn't see anything wrong with it then. We shouldn't see anything wrong with it now. No longer do we have to be consumed with the fear of what those on the outside in politics or in other regions across the world will think of us, because we can think for ourselves. We are a community that is
Froze again.
That's okay. Well, one thing that he and I talked about that I didn't tell you guys, there's already case precedent set. John Brown the First, he was sued for violating the 1808 Anti-Slavery Act, he was sued. There's already, and it was on the book. He mentioned the fact that 20 years before 1808, it went into place. Okay, in some states. So there's already precedent on the books. And this gentleman, John Brown, you guys have heard of Brown University, right? He was the founder of Brown University. And so he became really rich because of that. But he was sued under this act for violating this act. All right. So there's already precedent that it has been done. So it's not like it's the first time it's been done. He lost the case and refused to give up his things. You understand? But so this is not something new. It has been done. We just need folks who are bold. Now, I got a lot of people in the chat. I've answered this question. Somebody asked the question, how can you sue a country that did not exist in 1806? Would someone care to answer that question? Because I laid it out here for you. I'm not about to repeat myself. But would some of y'all like to answer that question? Let's just say mergers and acquisitions.
Mergers and acquisitions, you inherit the debt.
It's a basic concept, all right? I'm tired. We've answered all your questions. I told you what we need to do forward now. There's a statute of limitations issue. It can be gotten around. You can get through it legislatively, meaning just like those 9/11 victims got through it. Okay, but you know who the culprits are. You know who you see they're responsible. You know where venue is proper. It would not take more than one family alone with somebody who can direct it. This would be a 10 or 20 page brief, a lawsuit. It's not going to take that much because the statute is already there and it gives you what you owe. There's a penalty. You can call it reparations. You can call it what you want. As long as it comes from the person that owes you, why do you care? Now, again, we are 206 minutes in, 2 hours and 6 minutes in. Y'all gonna have to keep the likes up. Now, I got haters here. So we got somebody named William Hanson, and I'm not gonna pay attention. I'm the sellout now. See, this is what y'all understand. Let me tell you something about folks who call me the sellout. See, I'm from South Central LA, and I represent my side. You understand what I'm saying? That's how I was raised, to represent my side. See, at this point, I'm a foundational Black American. I am an American descendant of slaves, period. I love my African brothers, but this is my side over here. You understand what I'm saying? So just because I'm dedicated to my side, that don't mean, we can't be cool otherwise. But this is my side right here. This is how I was raised. I got cousins that was Crips. I got cousins that was Bloods. But if we go to war, somebody gonna get shot and grandma gonna be sad. But this is my side because my ties mean more to me. My word, my honor. This is my side. The worst thing you could do is not have me on your side. See, this is what I'm trying to explain. I'm not like my relatives. I don't have loyalty to you just because you're Black. If you on my side, you on my motherfucking side. Some of y'all don't understand why I rode so hard for my friend Kevin Samuels, because I said he was my friend. And that make me look weak if I don't represent my friend in his death. I met the man 2 times. You understand what I mean? I got t-shirts older than my friendship with Kevin Samuels. But the fact that I represented to the world that was my friend, that means I'm on his side. And I look like a weak ass punk if I don't represent somebody in their death and defend my homeboy. If I say that's my homeboy, it's real simple for me. That's why so many dudes be getting shot in LA. You understand me? Because they go, that's my side. I got to do what I got to do. Y'all don't get that because y'all don't have that mentality. But this is my mentality. This is where I come from. This is how I was raised. I'm not like the rest of y'all. There's some of y'all out there that's like me. It's a whole lot of y'all, but we few and far between. That's dedication. That's loyalty. You understand? Some of y'all talk about it, but y'all not really about it. You're not gonna put yourself out there on the line for who you claim is yours. Y'all faking. Y'all transformers. Anytime it get hard, you switch sides because you ain't real. But see, it's a different day now. That's what I'm trying to tell. I was bred differently. You understand what I'm talking about? Now, again, I got love for the other side. I got love for my African brothers and sisters. I got love for y'all, but y'all on the other side right now. You understand? Right now, I want my people here from New York to Florida to Seattle, out to California, and everywhere in between, when you can trace your relatives back to these little towns and whatnot, where they was picking cotton and whatnot and tobacco. That's my people. You understand? That's my side. So understand my motivation. And I'm putting it out there. You ain't got to like what I'm saying. You don't have to appreciate this. You don't even have to follow this. But now you got your answer. So you can't never say, Mr. Derek, like we talked about the other day, here's your answer. You see what I mean? It's on you to go with it. If you don't want to go with it, that's on you. Pick it up, let it alone. I don't care. Free game. What you got to say, man?
Man, I want my cheese, man. I want my cheese, man. I gotta take a fight over there. I'm getting out with my hands out. What my money at? And since the homie want to make a Woman King movie, we might well put them on the stand too.
That's what I'm saying. And you know, the thing is, this brought the queen dying, and this the homie movie is why this whole thing is happening. It all got in the ethos, and it made Black Americans say, "Hold on, wait a minute." You see what I mean? Hold on, wait a minute. And then we start looking. So this message is timely. So I want all these Pan-Africans, all of y'all out there who've been trying to get us to love. They don't love us, fam. I'm just telling y'all, they don't love us like that. And that's cool. That's cool because y'all don't love them like that either. But we just want our money. At this point, I think that's what we at. Just let it. You've been asked for reparations for damn near 100 years. You've been begging and asked. They're not going to give it to you for free. You're going to have to go take it. And the best way to do it is legally. You understand what I mean? And I'm presenting with you a framework by which you can get what you're owed to make yourself whole, make your family whole legally. And let me tell you what's else going to happen, free game. The minute you start filing them lawsuits, white folks will be like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. We'll go with that. You're not trying to get it from us. You're just trying to get it from some other Negroes. Cool, we're with that. You mean our American Negroes are going to get trillions of dollars from these? Oh, yeah. You're not going to have the pushback that you would have normally when you're trying to tell white folks, well, we want to get it from the coffers of the United States Treasury. You're not going to have that type of pushback. You see what the white folks saying on TV. You see what I mean? They're already with it. They're giving you Negroes a hint, Negro Americans, hint, Jamaicans, hint, you Brazilians. Here's your hint. We're with that. You would have more political support for that than trying to get it from your own people or get it from your own American government, which is taxpayer money that your black behind is going to have to pay anyway. You understand what I'm saying? But see, here's the problem, and I'm going to open this back up. There's a reason why, see, y'all scared of white folks. And I'm going to talk to all you Negroes real quick. At the end of the day, you scared of white folks because you're cowardly. You'll fight alongside them, but you don't want to fight with them. And I know who you are. I know how you are. I get it. I know how you are. So I'm giving you an option. You don't want to fight that white man. You want to just say, you're supposed to give me this and you're supposed to give me that. But the truth is, you want to sit up and play victim for another 120 years. You see what I'm saying? Because if you happen to get reparations, then you might not have no more excuses no more. You've been paid what you owe. You've been paid what your ancestors is owed. And now you might have to get off your knuckles and prove something. Just think about it. You know your psychology. I know who I'm dealing with. I know y'all. I grew up around y'all. I'm one of y'all. You understand me? You full of that cowardice. That's why you got people like I don't know. What's that boy that I don't even want to say his name. He shot that little young black boy back in 2000 what was it, 2014, Trayvon Martin. His killer's still running around. Yeah, I don't want to say his name, bro. I don't want to say his name. He shot Trayvon Martin and he's still walking around. But oh my God, right? Oh my God, y'all ready to kill all rappers though. Let's kill all of them, right? But this person's still walking around. He said F you because you cowards. So I'm giving you a way in which you can go ahead and let's get this problem resolved. Now you got action at your money. You can sue your own people. You can sue these Ghanaians for their part. And then what may end up happening, they say, hey, before we get hit with this $1 billion, a whole bunch of these lawsuits, or heaven forbid, a class action lawsuit that's worth trillions of dollars, that's going to keep us broke for the next 50 or 60 years, like Haiti, can we work something out? And then you negotiate, Alvin. You negotiate from a position of power. Derek, you negotiate from a position of power. Devin, you say either we're going to go forward with this lawsuit or you're going to give us what we've been asking for the whole time. And then you can settle for something like land. You understand what I'm saying, Douglas? That's how that works. Okay, but the bottom line is there's a framework out there. If you got one lawyer who work all day practicing law, who can come home, who can come over a 2-week time period, really a 2-year time period, and put this thing together, surely if we got our lawyers and our scholars together, but really our lawyers and our businessmen together, we could come up with a framework in which we could actually prepare some litigation. We just like when Thurgood Marshall and the Negro Defense League, Legal Fund got together and they put Rosa Parks up to hopping on the back of that bus. She didn't do that on her own. She was set up to do that. They picked her because she was light-skinned. She was a sorority girl, and she was known in the community for being demure and wouldn't pop off. So they chose her for that. So we can get a test case. You understand what I'm saying? A test case. Let's find some people who already know their heritage, that they can trace their heritage back to Togo, Benin, Ghana, Nigeria. You know where to file a lawsuit, Washington, D.C., in the district court there. Now it's just a matter of working out the statute of limitations. Or let's go ahead and file a lawsuit and see, while it's pending, can we get some legislation on the books, just like those 9/11 victims got, to do away with the statute of limitations issues? Because that would be your main issue. That's what I'm thinking. We're gonna do another little quick round, man. I want y'all to hit the number 1 button if you appreciate it. I hope you do. It's not like my normal, conversations, but we'll take a quick break. We'll come back right back with the fellas.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Shout out to Douglas, Devin, Derek, Alvin. Something like this, a couple $1 million, man. And you could put a precedent out there and could lead to black folks getting, hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's not like it's going to cost a lot. Lawyers don't cost that much. They don't. When you don't have the money, I get it. But if you got a couple of $1 million, you can get this case tried. The information is already there. So it's not like it's that much money. You just have the wrong people leading the reparations movement. You got politicians. Well, you got scholars begging politicians who don't have any incentive to do it, as opposed to putting some force behind it and say, we about to start suing some people. You see what I mean? We're going to sue some people and we're going to make a lot of money off of them. That's when things start happening. That's how you win man, it's so much I could say to you guys. But again, I just want y'all to understand, man, people didn't want me to do this. I actually received some phone calls from some folk that I really respect, who was telling me, nah, you don't do that, man. You making people mad. It was the same situation when I started defending Kevin Samuels. Don't do that, man. You got people mad at you. I don't know who the fuck these people are, but I'm right here. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm going to keep doing what I do, no matter whether you like it or not. And if anything happened to me, then I hope that somebody pick up the motherfucking mantle and keep moving forward. I'm going to be with the ancestors on the ancestors plane. But one thing is, I'm going to be able to look myself in the mirror and recognize I ain't no motherfucking punk. You understand what I'm talking about? That's courage. But either way, man, Douglas, excuse the language, welcome back to the broadcast, brother. What would you like to add before we raise up out of here?
Yeah, I would like to add that, I wasn't disagreeing with you. Yeah, money come first, and then, land for the next generation. But like you were saying, it wasn't just kings, it was also queens, like Queen Anna Zinga, who was helping the Portuguese. She actually tried to take over the slave trade. So I do fully understand that they played a major part. I was just saying that I see all the other countries running into Africa that we need a piece of the pie too, and we need our money. So we could build a satellite over there for the next generation while we get this money in our hands. So you exactly right. I know you're a lawyer, whatever. So I know you understand what's going on, but I was like, hey, you gonna do the gangster thing and seize the money, seize the account, but then you gonna make them fold and we can give us the money and give us a little land, sovereign land that belong to us.
At that point, they're not giving it to you anymore. You taking it from them. You see what I'm saying? But see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can't take that land from it. Because it's so much more I could go into. But the reason that you are able to sue sovereigns, and this is another little tidbit of information, the reason you're able to sue sovereigns is because of some commercial activity where they're competing with other commercial activities. You cannot sue them if they're exercising their police force. You take your butt to Iraq and you get beat up by the police, you can't sue the country of Iraq there. But if they're acting as a business competitor, if they're doing some commercial endeavor, for instance, bringing slaves to another country to make profit, that could be something that a privateer, a private party could do. So they're making money. There's plenty of cases on stock and trade where countries, sovereigns get sued for their commercial activity in the United States. So just keep that in mind. It's so much more I could talk about on this thing, but I want to kind of begin to wrap it up. Y'all make sure y'all hit the #1 button or I'm going to ease up out of here a little earlier than I planned. We gonna get up out of here, but y'all hit the #1 button and y'all show your contribute to the super chat too, man. That's shameful. I don't understand. I've only gotten a couple bucks, but never mind. Devin, go ahead, brother. Let me unmute you, Devin. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got grounds and standing both in the international court as well as in the United States federal court.
The problem with the international court is they don't have the power to seize these corporations' money and bank accounts.
This is right.
The federal court has the power to seize the accounts, and you got statute on the books, the law, the Slavery Act of 1808, which allows you to say, "Hey, we moving forward with this." See, Malcolm X had a wonderful idea. I'm gonna go tell on America. I'm gonna tell on America. I'm gonna sue you in the international court, which is in New York, over there in the nation. That ain't got no power. Matter of fact, the United States controls that because we chronically keep it defunded.
Yep.
The best place to deal with this is in a federal court in Washington, D.C. or some other federal court somewhere. I'm not asking anymore. I'm not a begging type dude, but I get what Malcolm was trying. It sounds good, but let's just keep it simple. But thank you so much, Devin. Let's go to Alvin real quick, man. What else you got to say, bro?
I just want to address the Stockholm syndrome and the pushback is crazy. The idea that just having another way, you can call it whatever you want, right? As long as we get paid, it doesn't matter. And again, we want to set precedent. We want to get the ball rolling. I've heard this conversation as long as I've been alive, and no one has made any significant. I've heard a lot of theories, but nobody's been made any significant movements. And this sounds like the most effective way that I've heard anybody speak of, and since I've ever, any being able to lay the case out in its most simple form and say, hey, look, this is the process. And so I want to give you your flowers and thank you for doing the work and at least is putting this up, because this is the kind of thing that I think, you've awakened some people this evening. There's definitely a lot of people that are still asleep. And I just want to give you your flowers and I really appreciate the idea. And if you were to take the same approach for those that want to think, domestically, right? Yeah. We're looking at I just heard about a $30 million settlement that got given out just the other day, right? Mm-hmm. on some police brutality, right? Same principle, similar principle, same old thing. But I'll go ahead and land my plan there. Thank you so much.
See, the thing is, Alvin, it's just money, man. They print up money every day. Yeah. This is not a hard problem to solve. Yeah. You see what I mean? Like that, that's what I'm trying to understand. I want y'all to. They gave somebody. Some girl got $1 billion over here because a dentist or something messed her mouth up. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying, if all you all are asking for is money, don't beg for it. Just go take it. They got the money. Go get your lawsuit. And you say they owe you. You're right. Slavery was wrong. Our African brothers, the reason they are doing all that apologizing is because they know I had all this laid out for y'all, all the countries that apologize. Well, you know you're wrong. Well, let's make it right. You pay us what you owe us. But see, the thing is, man, as long as, and I'm tired, y'all. That's why I'm wiping my eyes. Is, my eyes aren't as good. I'm gonna have to get a new prescription here because I noticed that my vision is getting blurred from staring at this computer over the last couple years and doing all this work. It takes me hours sometimes to prepare for these, so that's excuse that. But anyway, what I was saying was, they know they've done wrong. No African person in Africa right now can justify slavery. That's why they don't want to talk about it. Okay, they know they were wrong. Okay, but the first thing they tell you is not that we're wrong, we ain't got no money. In other words, yeah, we know we wrong, but we ain't got no money, so you ain't gonna get it. Well, yes, you do. You do have money. You got oil, you got natural resources. The Chinese wouldn't be there if you didn't have money. You got plenty of, you got wealth, and you need to share with your children that you sold off, that your other children sold off. You need to share with us. And if you're not willing to share with us, which you prove that you're not, then it's time for us to go ahead and exercise our rights in these countries. Now, what I think is going to happen, Alvin, somebody's going to get hold of this information. Now that the white man has approved it, you see what happened on TV? The white man has put their stamp of approval on it. So I bet them fast-running Jamaicans are going to be the first ones to file a lawsuits against these countries of Ghana. I bet that's what's going to happen because they got their own judicial system, they run their own stuff, and they got a lot of pride, and they see the money where it is. Next is going to be a lot of these other Caribbean countries because they got European and American educations and access to these American courts. And you Black Americans, y'all going to be last. And y'all going to be like, well, why we didn't get no money? Because you weren't involved in the settlement. You weren't involved in the lawsuit. Because here I am telling you, this is an answer to your question, and y'all telling me I done sold out because I'm saying, no, this is my side over here. I'm representing my side. This is the Black American side over here. I'm representing my side. I got love for everybody's side, but this is my side. You see what I mean? And many of y'all feel like that. You feel like that. At the end of the day, you really don't want to be made whole because then that's going to put responsibility on you. Once you get your reparations, what you going to complain about after that? You understand? Anyway, Brother Derek, man, I'm going to give you the last word, man. What are your thoughts?
Filibuster. I would say that, again, the incentivization isn't the only reason for doing this. It's the precedent being set for us.
Right.
And moving on into the future that we will be able to make a better world, a more beneficial world for our children and our grandchildren moving forward, knowing that in this process, you have to trace your lineage. You have to know where you come from. You are going to run into things about yourself that you never knew. And in doing so, ultimately, people are going to be held accountable. And they are going to have to give you what they owe. And thank you for letting me speak.
Always good to have you here, brother. But thank you so much. We'll take a quick break. I'm going to close this thing out. Y'all make sure y'all hit the #1 button. I will be right back.
Hey, if you're enjoying the content here at Dennis Sperling Unfiltered, make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. I want to thank everybody that's been here. Derek, Hollingsworth, Alvin Holden, Douglas X, Devin, who was in here earlier, the young brother who was in, I forget his name, his moniker. But there's work that needs to be done. But what I'm telling you is there's a framework here that we can work with. And all that begging, I'm not a beggar, just like I'm not a marcher. You understand what I'm talking about? I got that from Brother Malcolm. Brother Malcolm wasn't out there marching. And I'm not a beggar. You understand what I'm saying? And so I'm not a marcher or a beggar. If I want something and it's owed to me, then the best way to do it is go out there and take what you feel is owed. Now, the great thing about these here United States is that we have a civil law system, a court system, which allows us to seek justice in that system. It's a right and peaceable way to get it done. I, as a Black American, as a descendant of slaves who can trace my heritage at least back to 1806 on the King Plantation in Virginia, feel that my ancestors are owed or entitled to the atrocities they had to suffer. The initial one being stripped away from Africa. Everything that happened to them after that is a direct consequence or is foreseeable because of the actions of the original tortfeasors in this matter. And that was the royals and their agents who struck up treaties and contracts with not only European countries, but also these European corporations, which then allowed the privateers and the slave traders to bring us over to the United States. Now, let's say, for instance, their argument is going to be, hey, you can't get any money from us because slavery was legal in Africa. And therefore, you can't sue us for something that was legal at the time. And so your lawsuit is going to get dismissed because you have no cause of action, because whether you like it or not, it was legal at the time, period. In other words, nobody can sue you for deleting your baby, right, 2 years ago because it was legal at the time. But if you do that in Texas or Arizona right now, it's illegal. And so you get brought to task for what you done that was illegal right now, not for them 4 or 5 kids you deleted over since 2000. Does that rationale make sense to you now? Okay, I know I had to bring it on home for the hard of hearing. But bottom line is, after 1808, international trade of slaves was illegal. So if you got relatives that popped up in Alabama and started off in Ghana and popped up in Alabama in 1860, clearly it doesn't take 52 years to sail from Ghana to Alabama. So you know by preponderance of evidence where they came from, more or less. And so now what? So now you say, well, that was a violation of the 1808 bar on international slavery. And so what do you do moving forward? Now you say, well, who's at fault? Well, Ghana had a treaty all the way up until 1808 with these countries that allowed them to do slavery, but they kept doing it. So now they're clearly in violation and they're of slavery. We know where they came from. So there's a duty imposed on people not to break the law. So you violated that law. There's a penalty associated with that of $20,000 per person, which is probably $400,000 at this point. But even if you only got $20,000, multiply that times the interest, plus all the other facts, plus all the other amounts that you will be allowed to, and the common law claims that might arise. What does that mean? Well, you got a federal law claim, and then you got conversion, you got tort, you got theft, you got all of that stuff, inconvenience, emotional distress. By the time you get finished, you might have a claim to say, yeah, you can call it you can call it reparations, or you can call it a civil judgment. Bottom line is, now you got some leverage. Now you got some leverage because I got a viable lawsuit bearing down on you. You want to talk? Oh, you don't want to talk yet? Oh, you want to see what happens with the statute of limitations? Okay, well, let's bring in this 9/11 Act where they gave these folk the right to file suit against this sovereign because their nationals did something under the direction and protection of the Saudi Arabian government, and therefore the Saudi Arabian government is responsible for paying these people who were victimized in 9/11. Oh, what? Oh, these folk in 9/11 are more important than black. That's what you trying to tell me? These folk in 9/11 are more important than black folks? I don't think so. We all American citizens. And so this is how it works. All you need is the go light. All you need is your government to give you the green light to go ahead and sue. And that's just a matter of getting the right legislation on the books, period. And that's not hard. That's paperwork. And now, once you get through that, and that needs work, so research needs to be done on specific people who fall within this framework. You might have to do some research on the statute of limitations issue. How do we get around it? Can we use the 9/11, the Anti-Terrorism Act that came about from 9/11? It's on the books. We know where venue is proper. We know personal jurisdiction is proper. We know we got subject matter jurisdiction. We know that these countries have money, right? Because they got oil. I don't want the land. You can have it. I don't want to live over there. You're going to sell me and send me to China next time. I ain't going back. I just want my money. You understand what I'm saying? My brother Douglas said he want to go back. I want to go back. I'm good. I'm gonna stay right here, man. I'm moving to Decatur. You know what I'm talking about? I'm moving somewhere like that, man. Buckhead with the rich people, rich black folks. That anyway. I'm just kidding, man. Buy me some land in Indiana. But bottom line is, what I'm saying is, fam, there's a framework there. There's a legal framework that can happen. Now, there's probably, just like this scenario that I put forth, there's probably a dozen other different legal scenarios that we can use. I'm just one lawyer, one old country lawyer from South Central LA in the middle of Texas somewhere, coming up with this. Now look at the thousands of lawyers that we have, both white, black, all ethnic, all these American lawyers can come up with this scheme, and guess what we can do? This legal scheme, and we can go exercise our rights. That's all I'm saying. And like I said, just this scenario I came up with, there's dozens of others where you can collect your money, but let's stop begging these folks for reparations. Let's start using this legal system and keep pushing forward and pushing forward. You know what? You might fail. You might get your case dismissed. You might appeal it up to the appellate court. They dismiss it. You send it up to the Supreme Court. They dismiss it or they deny it. But, you know, then you might get some positive out of it. You might get an opinion that kind of agrees with you a little bit or says, well, if you do this, then we can do that. If the legislator does this, then we can do that. And now you're in a situation where you, okay, well, now we got some instructions on how we can win the next time. Or maybe we'll get a Plessy versus Ferguson where we just get flat out blued out and lose. And then 60 years down the road, which is really only a drop in the bucket as far as the escape of time, we get somebody else who's a lot smarter than me and a lot smarter than all of us who say, hey, technology's changed. Them old cats back in 2022 didn't have this. We got this now. Now we can prove with definity where we from. You see what I mean? And they pick up from there. But it's about building blocks. It's about stepping forward. It's about putting a block up. This is all I'm saying. Let's just put some steps ahead of us so our young people can come behind us and build. And if we able to win some cases and get some precedent, that's wonderful. That's ideal. We don't go into a fight to lose. But what I'm saying is we got to start somewhere. And like Alvin, I'm tired of hearing old Negroes and Pan-African panderers and blackity black pro-blacks talk about what the government need to do for us. I want to take what is owed to us by way of getting justice for my ancestors so we can finally get them to stop screaming in our ears and telling us we're owed something. That's what I want. That's what I want for us. And anybody that don't like it, fine. Maybe you're not supposed to like it. Maybe you guilty. Maybe you feel guilty. You African brothers and sisters in Ghana and Nigeria and the west coast of Africa, you're not supposed to like this conversation. This goes against your interests. This forces you to see the wrong that our ancestors did, because the truth is, many of your ancestors ended up over here too, because y'all sold cousins, brothers, mothers as evidence. And if you look at that Dr. Preety, she talks about a man who sold his wife into slavery and traded her to the Danish for goods. This is the real history that y'all avoid. You understand me? But anyway, man, I'm tired. I'm about 40 minutes past my limit. I hope y'all appreciate this. I won't revisit this for a while. I'd like to see what happens. I'm sure there's going to be some backlash from the blackity blacks. I'm sure there's some Pan-African folk who are going to look at this and be, oh, he's an agent. No, I'm a lawyer, and I'm ruthless like I'm supposed to be. The idea that I would not be as compassionate as you about the African folks means that we're different. Okay, but at the end of the day, my people asked for a solution, and I gave my people a solution. All you giving them is talk. That's what I got to say to y'all. Y'all been talking for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. I'm giving them a plan of action in which they can move forward. You don't have to like me. I would prefer you not like me, because I prefer real hate over fake love. And that's on everything. But either way, man, I hope y'all appreciate this, man. Y'all hit the #1 button, man, for Derek Hollingsworth. Thank you so much, Derek. I appreciate you coming back in here and sharing our story and I think is good for everybody. And those of you guys, you know, who really believe in the ancestors would be proud of us for finally standing up for ourselves. We're not out here trying to break bricks. We're not running up on politicians saying reparations, reparations, just so we can exercise our power and make them run away. No, we're going to have a quiet war in someone's nice, clean courthouse and say, this is what you owe me. Oh, you need some more paperwork? Okay, we'll get that paperwork for you. Oh, you need it? Oh, you need an expert? Sure, we'll get that for you. No problem. You don't have to do all that huffing and hollering and beating yourself up and fighting in the streets. Just get to the point. You want your money. Let's get your money, man. You understand what I'm saying? Uncle Slim used to say that back in the day. Shout out to Uncle Slim, man. I heard he got cancer out there in California, man. But, you know, let's keep it 100, man. Let's be men about this. Let's be men. Let's be men. Let's lead the ladies who are down. This is your avenue. Let's talk about this. I just want to talk about it. Other than that, man, God bless you all. This is Uncle D. As I always said this time, I'm out.